What's up, Rangers Nation? It's Alex Blink with Dallas Sports Fanatic, and welcome to Texas Rangers Fanatic Podcast. We're at episode number 4, and I am joined as we get ready for opening day with Dylan Duell, who is, I guess you could just introduce on your title. You're like, what, one step above me, or what?
Well, at Dallas Sports Fanatic, I'm the editor-in-chief / Rangers editor, just kind of a jack of all trades, kind of helping out in all the different areas.
So if you want to thank somebody for me being able to release my wings of awkwardness along, Dylan's the guy you can thank.
Yeah, it's been fun to have you on board. I remember before you first started, we basically reached out to each other with the same idea in mind at the same time. Because we had, we've only been covering the Rangers on the site for, it might be 3 years now. July 2017, I think it was. But yeah, we went through a few months of just trying to do Ranger stuff with just a couple people, and it just wasn't really picking up. And then I reached out to Alex, and Alex was like, hey, I was about to reach out to you, and then the rest is history.
Doesn't things work in mysterious ways?
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you have the beauty of seeing our faces because, we're going to be – because we're model covers, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then if you're listening, we're also this podcast is available on Anchor. And I got picked up by Spotify. It's been getting picked up by others. And so any support given for this podcast, I appreciate it. Appreciate all the follows. Appreciate what you guys do in listening just for Rangers coverage and just letting us be able to bring our insights, our opinions, and just getting ready for baseball, because guess what? Baseball's coming up in 2 days. Actually, less than 2 days if we're talking mere hours. So it's been a long time coming, definitely. And the Rangers' home opener against the Colorado Rockies. So Globe Life Field finally getting its work in. You saw it on TV. I saw it at the park. I'm going to start as far as on the TV side of it goes. The one thing raving is the backstop or the batter's eye or from the center field camera. Fans get to see straight across. I remember when Target Field first opened, when you're watching Twins games. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was like one of the first times where you could really tell it was straight to the plates. And just the first time I remember, I was like, wow, I can't believe nobody's ever thought of this before.
That's definitely different for sure. And that's, as always, in any sport really. But I mean, if you want to pick on baseball, you can. Sometimes change is hard for people. And I don't know, it seems maybe like the younger generation really favors the straight on center field view. And then I've seen some opposition to it too, but I can roll either way. I'm comfortable with the old, maybe to the right a little bit, but I do like the straight away, just really being able to tell what's a ball or strike view.
I think fans can really also get to see the movement of the pitches, where you can see as far as curveball, sliders, those kind, you could see it break inside. You could really see it break inside rather than if you tilt the camera further to the right and you don't really see that. I think it really gives fans the opportunity to see just how nasty some of these breaking balls can be and how a lot of these pitches move, and why, honestly, as a hitter, it's a lot more difficult than it looks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And after that first Trevino cam bid on social media, I'm excited to see some Corey Kluber pitches from straight away.
I'm just excited to see a Jose Trevino cam.
Yeah, they're both good so far.
So let's preview this weekend's games against the Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies come into town. If you may recall, the last time the Rockies came into town, it was Father's Day weekend where the Rangers took 2 of 3. In fact, the Rangers have dominated the Rockies in their last 10 meetings. This is how great we are. I wrote it down and I am looking at it, and they have won 8 of their last 10 meetings, 7 of their last 10 against the Colorado Rockies. So they've had their number. I remember back, I think it was like 20. It was before interleague officially came into play, when it was every single series instead of just June and July, that the Rockies had the Rangers number. And now it's kind of the tables turned, which is weird because I feel like it's been a more even series.
Yeah. So the last time they played them was, you said Father's Day. That was 2018, right?
Yeah, Father's Day 2018.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely a fun thing. I don't know. They're one of the more interesting teams to play for sure, because I always loved seeing them play at Coors Field, just for the uniqueness that is that stadium. Not only in the way it plays, but it's just one of the more beautiful stadiums in the majors for sure.
It's on my bucket list, and
I've
especially
been.
in you have.
Yeah, we went on a family trip to Denver, probably like 04, 05, and we went to Coors Field for a game, and we had to leave early because there was some lightning delays. We were out in the bleachers in left center field, but it's cool. The Denver downtown scene is really cool, and then you got the Pepsi Center not too far away. It's kind of like on the outskirts of downtown, a little further away. And then even like their Six Flags there is not too far away from downtown either. So that's definitely a departure from here in DFW. But it's an interesting scene for sure.
I feel like would you say it's a very underrated city? Maybe not so much where you can say, okay, I'm going to spend weeks and weeks there. And it's like not like going to New York, Chicago, any of those places. But I mean, if it would you say it's maybe a good few days if you're looking for a little getaway to a place you've never been to before with some good view, that it would be a place to put on the list?
Every time, I think I've been to Colorado 3 or 4 times in my life, and every time Denver is kind of just like a pit stop before you get to whatever resort mountain type environment you go to. But I definitely wouldn't mind spending more time in Denver. I've never been the one in charge of the trip when I go, but it's definitely somewhere I'd want to take my family for sure. There's plenty to do, not only in Denver, but then of course, like I said, just a little bit outside in the mountains and such.
I'm excited in August to watch this club travel to Denver. It's going to be an August weekend, so it's going to be warm, and to see, hopefully, if this offense could get into a groove, to kind of see some home run balls and see how far they could travel. Maybe get Gallo hot, Odor hot, the big boppers. It's a shame Maz is not on the team anymore. The White Sox and Rockies don't play against. I believe they don't play for a couple of years, but it would have been nice to see, because first of all, they were supposed to play in April this year, so I guess maybe they dodged a little bit, because I didn't check the Denver weather back in April, but it's not too fun to, I'm sure, play, because you could get hail, snow, rain, and it's just a whirlwind of weather issues you could have. And I guess that's the other thing is, if remember the April schedule, they were going to have some nasty weather games.
You talking about the Rangers?
Yeah.
Where else were they going to go?
They were going to go to Chicago, which I remember that was like 30 degrees that weekend, because that was going to be where I was going. And then Philadelphia.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's the possibility that they could be snowing or whatever there, but it could have also been just completely normal. It's not like here in Texas where you can just bank on 80, 90, 100 all the time. Mostly 100, yeah.
I wore long pants to the game yesterday.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And it felt nice.
Yeah.
You sit. It's a nice little. It's very comfortable when you're there. The AC that's on at Globe Life Field is fantastic. I think you'll see once fans can get in and you go look at next year Sunday games, they're going to be packed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I even hope they wasn't. I forgot. Wasn't the plan to have more Saturday day games or
Um, so there's Saturday games because it kind of
they were at
depends.
6? They were at 6, right?
Yeah, so they moved it to
What I thought.
6. This one's at 3. That's playing this weekend, and then also keep in mind between like middle of May to the All Star weekend, in the evening. For folks that don't know this, Fox owns basically the rights to that prime time window at like 6 o'clock, and so most teams there, so games that are not covered by Fox for the most point, they'll start at 3 o'clock Central Time. There's a few waivers that are in. I don't know if they're like waivers, but I've seen like the Rockies will play at 7, or the Padres may play at like 8, and then other teams, West Coast, play at 9. So for those that are wondering in the past why the heck the Rangers were playing on a Saturday day game at 3 o'clock, that's why.
Nice. Now we know.
Yep. But yeah, next year. So it'll be interesting when the time comes out if how many of those 6 o'clock games. I will say this. One thing to keep in mind, because I saw this the other day when they had the roof open, and I don't know if they're going to have the roof open because I'll be honest with you, and people may be like, why are they putting the roof open? It's not that bad. It actually has a nice breeze. But one thing could be problematic is if they do have the roof open at around 6 o'clock. The other day when they had it open, between 6 and 6:30, they did have the sun in the batter's eye, which created a little bit of problem. So that's one
Mm,
thing to keep in mind. Again, I don't know if they'll have the roof open. I think they should, if it's weather permitting. If they can have it open, and then have a little daylight, especially for night games. Have it up at
right.
like 11 o'clock. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
Even on TV last night, you could tell, especially in like the first couple innings, there was still from from the roof. You might remember what it's called, what they're calling it. How sunlight gets through the top of the roof.
Mhm.
You could see it shining down on home plate, and there was like sunlight on the players while they were in the batter's box or right in front of the home plate area too. So yeah, that's definitely one of the cooler features I think of the new ballpark is just how much natural light gets in, and that really comes through, especially during the day. And then one you can speak to this because I've only seen it on TV once last night, but the the color of the sky through the left field windows as the sun starts to go down is a pretty cool ad as well.
And it has behind home plate, that little area that's behind home plate. It's it's very gray, and so it looks like, especially when the sun's coming down, it looks like a peach color.
Yeah,
It's reflecting off, and this is behind home plate. So, which I don't know. I mean, I didn't notice it till like after about 3 or 4 times, but no, it seemed, it makes you wonder: is the sun really, how long is it going to be? Is the sun really coming? Because I saw that at like during when they had the day games too. So I don't know if there's any sort of what that is. I mean, I'm not an architect, so I won't speak on that.
yeah.
But
Well,
we
as
will.
long as long as they avoid the issue with Cowboys or AT&T Stadium, where they're just being an insane one part of the field that's just completely in sunlight for the second half. That's a win.
You know what I didn't see is if there was any Cowboys Rangers conflict in the month of September. They're playing at the same time
It wouldn't
since
be a
they've
big
already.
deal, right? If there's no fans.
I guess so. Or like next year. Well, they'll come up with the Cowboys schedule next year since the Rangers schedule's already come about. But you think they'll do the same thing? Will they have them at the same times, or will they try to maybe
It might be
adjust
even
it?
harder because I'm not totally sure of the parking details, but it definitely seems like They'd share more of the same parking lots than they used to, right?
I
Used
mean,
to
it's
the west of Globe Life Field.
How would you feel on a Sunday at Texas Live
Oh,
during both?
that'd be a tough day to work for sure, but hopefully the money's good. Hopefully, if everything's successful there.
They had yesterday. They had a look like in between innings where they just kind of passed by the time. They were still doing a few of those. They didn't do any dot races, I will say this, but they did run the fiddle music after "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which was very odd because there's
Yeah.
obviously no clapping, and so it sounded weird. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's how it sounds, because you're so used to hearing the clapping in your mind, and it just sounded odd. But they had like a Texas Live view where I guess they have a camera there, and so all it showed there was just like family eating dinner and it's held on that shot for like a good minute. And it's like,
Did they notice that they're on? Did they know
no,
that
they
they're?
didn't. They didn't
Oh,
notice that they were on camera. It was so awkward.
that is awkward.
I was gonna
Good thing
tweet
they're
that
doing.
out, but I didn't want to like be a creeper or anything. But I guess now that I put it out here, I guess there we go.
Yeah, I didn't know that Texas Live was open, but yeah, I mean, I guess so for dining in. People can do that.
And I mean, not that I was paying attention, but yeah, no, that was the only family that was on there, and it was like I mean, they looked like a nice family, but
That's good. I'm glad that they weren't having some serious family drama play out.
there was no engagement that was done, no ring hidden in the water.
Oh, that's good.
So this weekend, Rangers and Rockies, we got a little taste of the Rockies yesterday. They have some boppers. They hit 3 homers yesterday. And so this weekend, it's going to be interesting because I would say there's a lot of expectation with Lance Lynn, Mike Minor, and Corey Kluber. They certainly have earned the expectation. But it's a tough road out of the gate because you've got Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, Daniel Murphy is no slouch. David Dahl's got some pop. I mean, it's a bopping lineup. I mean, just so you and looking at the offense yesterday, it seemed like they were, I don't want to say outmatched, but they seemed it was quick work. They did get a couple of extra base hits. Leody Taveras, my gosh, I mean, Woody didn't say earlier today that he made the team, but I would be a little shocked to see him not make the club just for the first batch of 30, because not only does he have the speed, but now he's showing that he has the whereabouts with the bat, because that's what he was lacking.
Right. Do you think does that immediately bump anybody who we might have expected to be on the 30-man right off the bat?
Well, we already know that they're going to carry 3 catchers, which
Yep.
I'm a little surprised, because you do have an emergency catcher in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa if you absolutely need one. So now you have 4 catchers essentially on the roster. And it depends on how many bullpen guys. I mean, they'll need I know Brett Martin was cleared, but he's still on the injured list. So they need a left-hander. And I mean, they're still giving Guzman a chance at DH. For those that would be watching tonight's game, Guzman's DHing because Chirinos, I guess, was elected not to hit today. He's fine, but he elected not to hit today. He didn't need any more reps. So Guzman's still getting a little bit of a chance, but that's another thing I want to bring to your attention too while we're on this corner situation. Did you ever think that they would shift Todd Frazier from third base to first base to make room for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? And it's not like it's crazy talk, because, I mean, the performance is there.
Yeah, I mean, early in the year, we thought maybe Todd Frazier could be shifted because we were crossing our fingers for a Nolan Arenado trade, but For Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, that's a bit surprising. But again, like you said, seems like he's just torching it, and I'm fine with it because IKFC's always shown the ability that he, belongs on a major league roster. It's just a matter of where he fits, and luckily for him, he's versatile enough to give himself the opportunity at a lot of different positions.
Yeah, I mean, he can play every day. If Elvis needs a day off, you could shift him over to short, move Frazier over to third, and you still have. I would be shocked if both Guzman and Bird don't make it. I wouldn't be shocked if one didn't. Now, Guzman has options to the minor leagues, so it'll be interesting to see later on today what the overall consensus is. But I would be shocked if both if we're off the roster. Though you do have other options at first base if you absolutely need to. And then a couple of injury scares that have come into a positive note. Robinson Chirinos looks to be good for opening day, so that's good. And then Willie Calhoun, from the looks of it, he is running, or he did run yesterday. Calhoun is DHing for tonight's game, but he is having a quote-unquote courtesy runner that was approved by both sides. Yep.
Why not? Let's just be weird.
They're having 2 DHs tonight.
Right, yeah.
And from what Chris Woodward said, it was because when they made up the lineup card, it was so neat and tidy. They had 10 spots that they're just like, let's have 10 players bat.
Why not? Are the Rockies doing that?
I believe. Well, and that's the thing of I think the Rockies are just in this position of, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever. Yeah. Whatever helps us get there.
Right.
No, they do not have 2 DHs unless Antonio Senzatella, who's pitching, is hitting.
Yeah, that'd be odd.
Well, we had 2 DHs, so.
Yes. And it's the 2020 season, so anything's possible.
I'm curious about, that brings another point for, and this is just kind of a little bit off, but like for when the Diamondbacks are playing, because of how good Madison Bumgarner can hit, would you consider pinch hitting using Madison Bumgarner in a situation, or Zach Greinke in that scenario? Right. Or, I mean, heck, even Giovanni Gallardo was a promised pitcher that could hit.
Yeah. I always remember when I think of Diamondback pitchers hitting, I just remember watching Sports Center or Baseball Tonight that night. That was his Micah Owings. What was his name? He hit like 4 homers in a game or something like that. 3, maybe. I think it was at Turner Field, but yeah, that's what always I think about when I think of Diamondback pitchers hitting.
And it's, well, I mean, Mike Leake opted out, but that's another option you have if he didn't opt out.
Oh, yeah.
So Mike Leake is a prominent pitcher that can hit.
Mike Leake and his single-digit pitching number, which is another odd sight.
We're all about oddities here.
Right.
So what are your initial thoughts for this weekend? What is maybe something you're looking for? What's something that do you feel like the performance this weekend, is there, because the Rockies I feel like are in that position where you don't really know what to expect from them. Nobody's really thinking that they're going to compete with the Dodgers and even Arizona. So if you do at home take 2 of 3, lose 2 of 3, how do you assess this weekend's?
That's the whole question about the whole season, is how do you assess anything, because it's just so different. Usually on opening day, the opening weekend, you're just kind of happy to have everything back. You can overreact for fun on the positive side. But now with this shortened season, and especially with the Rangers starting out with this seemingly easy stretch to start the season, it's going to be hard not to maybe overreact on the negative side if you're three best starting pitchers are going, and you come out of the gates, losing the series. But on the ballpark side, I feel like all these streams and uh, exhibition games on TV have kind of solved all that. At this point, I'm kind of just ready for the games to count, and to just start soaking in actual baseball. Again, you mentioned the offense earlier. It's did not look good last night, and I don't know. Well, it's going to be hard not to overreact to anything in this shortened season because you don't just have the given 6-month journey like you normally do.
And that's one of the things on both sides, the offense and the pitching side, is at what point do you, if a guy is struggling, you pull it. We all know, I'm just going to use him as an example, Rougned Odor, how he can carry a team when he's on a hot streak, but when he's on a cold streak, man, it's tough to watch. At what point, if on that cold streak, do you start pulling back? And even if he's using a good approach, because bad luck happens. You could have a great at-bat, great approach, but if you're not seeing the ball well, then there's nothing really. You just have to put it out of the funk. And another instance on the pitching side, with Chris Woodward, Jonathan Hernandez has been dealing, and so one of the things I said yesterday is if Leclerc starts struggling, remember he got pulled for Sean Kelly last year. If that starts to happen again, do you give Jonathan Hernandez a shot? I think he thought I was thinking, is there competition at closer's role, which was not really the case. I know Leclerc's the man right now. I mean, there's no question. But at what point do you pull that leash? Is it a much shorter leash than last year because there's such a lengthy season compared to this year? And if Leclerc starts having maybe a couple of bad outings back to back, do you bring in Jonathan Hernandez, see what he's got? Or do you just ride your closer to give him the same kind of leash you would to the previous year?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that Woody and John Daniels have had conversations with guys, especially guys who are under contract for next year and even beyond. This is not the year to have hurt feelings, if this team is competitive, and Odor is a weak spot in the lineup, and there's Nick Solak not getting at bats on a regular basis because Kiner Falefa continues to do well at third, and Calhoun staying healthy, et cetera, in left field. It's time to take you out, buddy. I mean, we don't have time to wait on you, and plus you're still under contract for a while. So I would just hope that guys who still have options and are under contract just get it, that this is a sprint, not the usual marathon. And if the team's halfway decent in a crazy shortened season, it's not unrealistic at all for them to be in contention, even with all these projections of records and stuff. I've seen the Astros from anywhere from like 35 to 40 wins, so you're not going to be too far behind them. So I would think that the leash would be short for a lot of these guys, and hopefully the feelings aren't hurt too bad.
And who knows? That could be one of the reasons why Frazier gets his spot at first and Kiner Falefa goes to third. In a 162-game season, would that have happened? Would you have kind of said, okay, I'm going to give, I know Ronald Guzman hasn't had the best summer camp or best spring training, but, he's our guy at first on opening day in March of 2020. Does he get his shot now that it's a 60-game sprint? Well, Frazier had a good summer camp. Kiner Falefa's having an amazing summer camp. Let's go with that combination, see what we got. And that's why I think keeping Guzman is a good, and especially for defensive purposes. I mean, his defense is still fantastic. I mean, that's no question. So you could also utilize him as a defensive replacement in the ninth inning if need be. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they did that a few times.
I think there could, especially with the expanded roster, there could be a lot of late game replacements of significant bats on this team. just in the urgency of a shortened season. Sorry, Willie Calhoun. We're going to put in Scott Heineman or Leodis Tavares in the 7th, 8th, and ninth inning, just to make sure that we're set on defense right now,
Or how many teams will keep at least one speedster on their roster for the extra innings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that rules. That's a crazy thing to consider. It's going to be interesting to see. I haven't even checked like how often extra inning games even happen, but what? It's funny. Maybe as soon as this new rule comes in, they happen more than ever, just by some crazy coincidence or something.
I'll say this, visiting teams are going to be a heck of a lot of aggressive in the late innings because they're at a huge disadvantage in extra innings. So if it's like the 8th or ninth inning, a road team, oh boy, they're going to do anything they can because the likelihood of, in this new rule, winning an extra inning game is definitely not as good as the traditional format.
Yeah, it's gonna take a second to adjust to it, and I'm sure that the first time it happens, players are gonna be pissed about the way it didn't break right for their team. But everybody's on the same playing field, and it'll eventually even out.
And it'll be interesting with the way the ballpark, as far as crowd noise goes, music goes. How did it fare on TV?
I haven't been a fan of it in any sport that I'm watching. I'm just enough of a fan of sports to not need the gimmick of that. But I don't know. I don't know how it played out in the ballpark, but to me, there needs to be an option for just like general crowd murmur, instead of active cheering that's not realistic as to what would normally happen in a game. You know, uh, I'm not blaming Grooves and whoever else is in charge of that presentation, but uh, it's not going to be a playoff game every night. That's what they try to make it sound like, basically. Like I wish that Rangers crowds were getting really loud with 2 strikes, because I've been to postseason games and that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But generally, that's not the case. And it's just kind of just that general murmur. They need to find that sound effect more so than the really loud cheering at everything.
I could have sworn I heard a couple times when the Rockies were at bat, I heard little murmurs of overrated. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
Maybe I was hearing things.
I've heard Groups talk on the radio today, and he's made it pretty clear that they have to keep everything pretty positive. So
Yeah.
it would maybe be some hijinks if that somehow was the case.
Or maybe they had that talk after yesterday. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows?
What does it sound like in the stadium?
I mean, it sounds it actually sounds like just regular crowd, but yeah, I mean, like, when certain players come up, like, on, and no disrespect to some of the players, and I'm not.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's just like a roar.
But do you really think a guy like Jeff Mathis is going to get the same round of applause as Joey Gallo's going to get?
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. And I don't know. I'm sure Jeff Mathis appreciates it, but
No. I mean, it's no disrespect, and Jeff Mathis has his.
oh, and even like on the second or third at bat of the game for Joey Gallo, the reaction's not even going to be that big, because we've heard it already.
And that'll be interesting to see how he performs with being late to the game. But that's just a wait and see moment. One thing I talked to David Murphy yesterday, and I asked him about, how would you have played in that? And he's like, I never thought about that, because when you're, and to be true, who would have thought about playing in empty stadiums? I mean, even when he was playing at Baylor, who would have even thought of playing with nobody? I mean, like, even when you're in Little League, you've got fans, you've got at least your parents.
At the very least, you've got rowdy parents.
Yes, maybe too rowdy, but you still have people there. So just playing in a crowd of nothing. He said it may be more of an advantage for younger players than it is for veterans who are so used to it. I could see how that's going, especially when you're in a groove. So and when you've been in the league so long. So I don't know. You may see some some older players kind of gets in their heads, especially maybe with the older outfielders who have been in the league.
Yeah.
We're so used to people yelling and screaming at you, and sometimes you get used to it, and then it's not there, and it just blindsides you.
You might kind of just fall asleep during the game. Forget what's going on.
All right, so I want to thank my man Dylan Duell for joining me as Rangers opening day is coming up in the next few days. I do appreciate you joining me on here, and I'm sure this will not be the first time. This will be, we'll get you back on here, but yeah, it's not going to be the first time. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm excited to be on here, and I've enjoyed the first few episodes. I think you're doing great, and as always, appreciate all that you do for Dallas Sports Fanatic. Hope everybody soaks up everything that Alex does for the site because he's doing a great job.
Thank you so much. And again, for Texas Rangers Fanatic podcast, you can have this up on YouTube. You can watch the video, see our lovely faces on
It's
YouTube.
been a fascinating video, I'm sure.
or if you prefer not to see the faces, you can also listen on Anchor. It's also available on Breaker, on Overcast, on Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify. So, yep. And more to come, hopefully. More to come. Every Rangers fans, enjoy opening day, and we'll be back next week.